Allah had summoned them. And summoned them, this could have been Jannah, this could have been the paradise. I'm not sure really what was the basis of the story, where they were at. But Allah summoned them. And Allah asked Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, who are you? And Muhammad said, I am Allah. Because there is no God but God. There is no reality other than Allah. La illallah illallah. There's no God but God. Allah is the reality. So if I say that I am and I am something, then I'm creating something outside or beside God. So I am you. There is no me. This is the highest level of consciousness that you reach when you're studying Sufism. Realizing that Allah is in your heart and can be embodied through your compassionate response to humanity and to reality. So yeah, when I say God, I'm talking about that level of understanding. Or when I say God, I'm not talking about people who walk around talking about a God in the sky who's white above the clouds. But if you go into Judaism and you deal with the Kabbalah and you deal with the I am that I am, the Tetragrammaton, he is who he is, that's who I am. You see the point I'm making? Mm-hmm. When you talk about God, I am talking about that. I am that I am. When you look at the symbol and you write out Yahweh or Yahweh or Yud He Wav He, when you write that out, the letters in the Hebrew language, it looks like a man.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. If you write it out, his head, his solar plexus is there, and it's a flame, and his head is a flame. The highest chakra, and dealing with the solar plexus, which is the sun that is inside of us, which in Tai Chi they call the dosyeondam, which is the seat of energy, which all your movements come from, and then it's the legs on there. So why the symbol of Yahweh in Hebrew is a man. Arm, leg, arm, head. If you study it from a Kabbalistic perspective, if you go into it from Judaism. Now, if you go into it and you say from a Christian Scientist perspective, I am that I am, then I'm talking about God. But from a Christian perspective, I'm not talking about that God, or who the Hebrews say is Yahweh somewhere in the sky that's governing and controlling over everybody and they have no power. I'm not talking about that being when I say God. I'm talking about that higher level of consciousness, the essence of who we all are. So my point in saying that is that when they say the Creator, they're now taking the assumption that what they see has some beginning. When they look out into the universe, they assume that somehow this began. But the creation is a word that denotes process. Whenever you see I-N added to a word, it's always talking about a process. Action, creation, relation, right? So if this is the creation, this is already, the word denotes that this is some everlasting process that may not have had a beginning or never had an end. So what you are calling God never created, but is a process himself of constant creation. Do y'all follow what I'm making? Big difference. When you go and say God created, then now you're saying this is all over with. And you're walking around in the conclusion. But when you say creation, you denote a process of something that's constantly happening. It's an action word of something that's happening. So when you say creation, you know that you are an organic aspect and you are a participant in that process because you are inseparable from everything that exists. Everything that you find in nature, all the elements, all the forces that are in nature are in you. And there's no separation between human beings and any aspect of nature. We are a part of nature in our own processes. We breathe in oxygen, breathe out carbon dioxide. We are inseparable from nature's manifestation and nature's behavior. Its behavior patterns are somehow related to where we populate, what we do in societies, how we pollute the air, how we destroy the earth. Nature has an interactive relationship with man. So even nature is not outside of man. It's totally holistic. There's a more holistic relationship between man and nature. And that same holistic relationship is the same between man and God. Now in Kemet, in Egypt, nature was considered the neters, or the neteru. So the elemental forces were considered gods. Or the forces of nature was considered God. So we were in alignment with those forces. And we utilized those forces to manifest things and to make things happen. And we use those forces to shape and create our own reality, to manifest our own destiny, to build those powerful monuments and those powerful structures. We use the forces and powers of nature to manifest those things. So when we say God, We're inseparable from nature, and we're the same inseparable from God. But I got to go back to the Christian concept to further make my point. When you go and say now the universe was created, you say God created this. A man or some being created all of this. Now I say, okay, that's interesting. But in the Bible it says, let us make man in our image. So this denotes more than one person. Let us make man in our image. So it's more than one person there, according to the Bible, if you pick it up in Genesis. So I said, dang, it's more than one person there. We're not going to get lost into that. We're not going to be caught up there. But just take note of that. Let us make man in our image. Now, where was God standing when he created all of this? Where was he at? The Christian will tell you, well, you're going too deep now. You asking where God was at when he created the universe? Come on. Nobody knows that. Well, if you don't know, why are you practicing something you have no knowledge of? But let's keep questioning that. God created the universe. Where was he at when he created it? What was he inside of? Was he inside of something bigger than him? Because to exist denotes to be. And to be is relative to other things that are being. Let's not get away from the English language. It has to make sense. To exist separates what you are from something else that is. If you cannot be separate from something else that is, you do not exist. You have no existence. Existence denotes individuality. So for God to exist at any period in time, there had to be something other than his existence. Do you see the point I'm making? Or it will be oxymoronic. His existence would have been non-existence, and that makes no sense. You're saying God exists, and you're saying that he was a being and a man that walked in the garden, and that he can see, and he felt, and he even rested on the seventh day. So you're saying God is some type of a being that exists. And I asked, well, where did he exist at? He existed somewhere. It must have been a place. And who is the God of that place where he existed? Ask yourself that question. If he existed somewhere, then that had to be an atmosphere. And there had to be a place. And there had to be laws and principles that govern the existence of that location. Let's go even further. God said, I create man in my likeness and image. So that means God has an image. Think about that. An image of which he created man in the likeness and image of. So if we in his likeness and image, this being had an arm, leg, and arm, head. So he would have to have had body parts if we reflected his image. Well, some people say, well, he had a spiritual image. We had a material image. What's the difference? An image is an image. When you go to sleep,